Hi everyone, thank you so much for clicking on this video. I'm so excited to be able to sit down and film this video and to give you an update on my tiny house progress. It's been quite the journey so far. It's been quite the roller coaster. It's been quite the roller coaster, and I'm so excited to be where I'm at now. I'm finally at the stage where my mortgage was approved by the bank, and so I'm in a position to be able to start construction and realizing my tiny house design. But there are a few things that I've realized along the journey that I really wish I knew ahead of time that could help me to manage my expectations and really fully enjoy this process. It's been an amazing one so far. I've really enjoyed designing the house with my architect and reaching out to different contractors and seeing inspiration around the country for things that I want to incorporate in my design. But as I'm going through this process of venturing into building a tiny house, there are a couple things that I've been noticing and learning and, really being exposed to that I thought could be really helpful to share with persons who are thinking of building a tiny house, or maybe you are still on the fence about whether to build a tiny house. So yeah, all that being said, I'm just gonna jump right in. I should actually tell you where I'm at currently. So literally last week, I was approved for my mortgage. Yeah, I'm going through the bank to get the money to be able to build my tiny house. And that leads me to the first thing that I wish I knew: how expensive it is. I thought that because I'm building a smaller home, because it's a wooden home, because it's not a traditional or a bigger space, that it would be way more affordable. And in some ways it is a lot more affordable, but it's still quite expensive. I've done a lot of internet research on tiny houses. I've watched a lot of videos. I especially watch Living Big in a Tiny House. And why I love that channel is because when they interview persons who do live in tiny houses, they give you the entire, gamut. They give you what the size of the house is, they tell you about the cost, all of the elements. It's a very comprehensive type video that you're watching when you're looking at persons and their tiny houses. And from those videos, most people, the costs, it ranges around like $100,000, and this is like either US or Australian dollars or even New Zealand dollars. And if I convert that, that's about 200,000 Belize dollars. I thought that because I'm building it in Belize, then that would translate to 100,000 Belizean dollars. And so far, that's not the case. It looks like that it's going to be a little bit more than I originally budgeted for. And that's partially the reason why I'm getting a mortgage. It's not like a very big mortgage, but it's not for a typical mortgage in the sense that, people have mortgages for 20-25 years. It's way less than that. And I really don't want to compromise on the quality of what I'm building, even though it's a small space, even though it's not a traditional home. I still want it to have a very comfortable and slightly maybe even luxurious feel, and I want it to last me for the rest of my life, because this is my forever home that I'm building, and so yeah, one of the things I realized is that tiny house does not mean tiny price. But that's the first thing I wish I knew, that the cost is not going to be as small as I thought it was going to be. Second is that the process is taking way longer than I thought as well. I thought that it's a small space, so the design is going to be very simple. I'm just gonna work with my architect to come up with something, submit that to the Central Building Authority, which is the body here that authorizes and approves construction of homes, residential spaces, commercial spaces, things like that. I thought it was going to be really quick, but it hasn't been. I think I officially got approval from CBA maybe around the 3rd of April, and I started officially having meetings and, from the very beginning of meeting with my architect last March. So it's been over a year that just that part of the process has taken, you know, it's been a year to finalize the design, submit that through the relevant, you know, processes, government things. But it's because it's all encompassing. It's not just designing the house, it's confirming with the engineer that the structural integrity of the house is what it needs to be. You know, the plumbing, the electrician, the quantity surveying, all of that is part of the process that I of course I didn't know that because I've never built a house before, but that has caused the process to be way longer than I expected it to be. But yeah, I really didn't expect it to take this long. And then on top of the designing of the house being long, the process with the bank as well. I think I started my official application in October, and like I mentioned, I just got my approval last week. So that's 7 months that it took for the bank to go through your documents. And then the bank also requires you to get certain things done, like you have to do an appraisal of the land, you have to get CBA approval, obviously, you have to get a lot of personal documentation. The mortgage application process itself, even that has its own costs. So getting an appraisal of the land, paying for the architect, getting assessments, doing soil tests, all of those things have their own costs. So it's not just about applying and getting it done, but there's also these upfront costs that you'll have to make while you're going through the process. And then finally, you're gonna have to do a lot of compromising. So in terms of the design of my house, what we have now, what we've come up with, my architect and I really, really, really love it. It's perfect. It's exactly what I want. It gives me the kind of vibes and the feels that I'm going for, but it's not the original design. The original design that I wanted was a traditional, you know, a typical tiny house where it's on the lower level, you have your bathroom, your kitchen, your living area, and then there's a loft where there's a sleeping area. That's the original design that I wanted. But the contractor that I was originally going with, they do not build off-site above 12 feet. And the design that I originally had in mind was 14 feet. And they don't build that high because they build on their site, and then they transport the house to your site. And because of, you know, what is permitted on the roads, and just what they're capable of towing, they don't build above that high. So because I was at that stage still going with them and still really wanted them to build my tiny house, I was like, okay, well, I'll stay at 12 feet and then we'll just modify. So we modified from the 14 feet, brought it down to 12, and then put the sleeping area in a different part of the house. So now the tiny house is L-shaped rather than going upwards, you know. And while I'm fine with this change and I was okay with that, I really still I wasn't in the very beginning, you know, excited about changing the design because I wanted it to be a true tiny house style space, and I thought that could be part of the experience of having everything in just one compact area to help me, you know, be mindful of the space I'm using and the energy that I'm using. But I had to compromise there. I also have to compromise as it relates to the solar. I originally planned on going fully off grid, so having fully solar and full not connected to the grid, water or electricity. But because of the cost, it's really prohibitive in the sense that when I got quotes from, I think two companies that do solar here in Belize, one quote was almost $30,000 up front, and the other quote was something similar, around 26 or 27. And that sounds not like a lot up front, but because of the budget that I have that I really want to stick to, I'm thinking that I may have to either do a hybrid system, which is a little cheaper and would work out to about half the price of the 30,000, maybe a little bit less than half the price, and go from there, transition when I'm able to shift into a full solar system. Or I might even just be on the grid for the first couple months or maybe a year and see how that goes, see what my consumption's like, and then from there decide if I want to continue with a hybrid system or go fully solar. And the same with my water. I'm not compromising as it relates to my biodigester. I still want a system where I can utilize the waste from the house, so all of the water from the sinks, the showers, from the sewage, to convert that into gray water that I can use for my plants and my nursery, or even for energy, because that's an option as well. That's something I'm not compromising on. I definitely want that. Part of my tiny house journey is also managing the way that I spend finances and managing the way that I consume. And so it would just be a little almost hypocritical if I just spend a whole heap of money to have this space just because, I think it's part of good planning, being financially responsible, to see what I can do and do what I can with what I have, and then seeing what works for me. That's what I've learned so far. Those are things that I really wish I knew ahead of time, and that could have helped me to manage some expectations. But yeah, I'm finally at the stage where I am ready to get on with the building and realizing the design. It's been a while. It's been a while, but the process has been very exciting, and I can't wait to keep you updated. If you have any questions about building tiny houses in Belize, buying land in Belize, I might film a Q&A video, because I do get a lot of questions about this process and what it's like in Belize in particular, in terms of costs and materials and spending and things like that. So thank you for watching. Thank you for clicking this video. I really hope you're well, and I'll see you in my next one. Thank you.